My wife and I have been married for 7 years. We both have teen daughters. My wife's daughters lived with her dad her entire life. My wife is an excellent mother, but her ex was moving across the country and she knew he could give her a better life than she can. 2 years later, they moved back to his home country, approximately 12 to 18 hours from us by plane. They flew my wife out to visit them a few times a year, and they sent her to visit us during her summer vacation. He got a job approximately a half hour from us, so we've had her 50-50 for the past few months. The thing is, we have a 2-bed, 1-bath house in a good neighborhood. My daughter's had her own room her entire life, and she did not take it well when she heard she had to share. She's tried blocking my stepdaughter from their room, threw her stuff out the window, and tries to make my stepdaughter uncomfortable so she'll leave. Last week, my stepdaughter got here, sat on her bed, and almost immediately ran out coughing and covered in a rash. My wife had to use her daughter's EpiPen and called 911. We didn't have a car at home. She and her ex got into a fight at the hospital, and she got kicked out, and her ex is refusing to allow stepdaughter into the house. Ex is legally able to do this because he has full custody. We have a camera to monitor the dogs, and if the bedroom door is open, you can see into the girls' room. We had also just moved the camera and hadn't gotten around to telling my daughter yet. We decided to check the cameras and we saw my daughter bringing nuts into the room and eating them on my stepdaughter's bed before touching everything my stepdaughter owns. My stepdaughter's deathly allergic to nuts. Nuts are not allowed in the house, but you're allowed to eat them in the garage and you have to scrub your hands before you come back in. My wife, understandably, was furious when she saw it. She stormed into the girl's room, started screaming at my daughter, and told her to get the heck out of her house. I talked my wife into letting my daughter pack a bag, and I arranged for my brother to pick her up. My wife is adamant that my daughter is no longer allowed to step foot inside her house. We filed a police report, and the plan is for her to stay in a group home or boarding school for the next couple of years. Now my family and my daughter's mom are pressuring me to leave my wife so I don't have to send my daughter away, but I'm refusing to leave, and I agree with my daughter's punishment because she hurt a person and caused my wife to lose her daughter. Ex isn't letting her into this house. Now I'm being called a bad parent by everyone except my brother, who's putting her to work on his farm until we find a more permanent arrangement for choosing my wife over my kid. Am I the idiot? My daughter's mom's not able to take care of a child. Jesus, man, what is up with your daughter? You are not the idiot. This is a hard punishment for your daughter to bear, but she did an absolutely terrible thing. She acted with intent to seriously harm your stepdaughter and essentially risked her life for this little stunt. Being a teen is young, but not too young to understand the gravity of her transgression. If your wife is to have any chance of salvaging her relationship with her daughter, she needs to demonstrate that she's acted decisively to protect her daughter from further harm in this situation. If you leave your wife, then your daughter gets at least part of what she wanted to achieve. OP, you're not choosing your wife over your kid. You're choosing to show your kid that her actions have serious consequences. If you leave your wife, then won't this little stunt basically accomplish exactly what she wanted? You might be the idiot in part for raising a child who would do this. I don't think this kind of behavior happens in a vacuum, but I fail to see how you're right. Let's make sure you do get your own room here and never have to see stepdaughter again, just like you wanted, is teaching the kind of life lesson about attempted murder that you wanted to. My daughter's mom is not able to take care of a child. Then her mom should 100% shut her mouth. The problem is the mom doesn't see this as a problem. Instead, she wants hubby to leave the new wife. As for the rest of the family, they can either take your daughter in or also shut their traps. Thinking maybe you should have parented her before this turned into such a bad situation in the first place. What a mess. My daughter, teen, was always very loud about her femininity. She always had glitter on her. Her favorite color was pink, and she had bows in her hair. Skirts and dresses were her favorite clothes. She was very gentle and shy. She was like those princesses from the books. Almost a year ago, she started to change. Slowly, she stopped wearing pink dresses and skirts and went to oversized pants and t-shirts. She stopped wearing makeup, and it was rare to see any color on her that wasn't dark. I tried to talk to her, but she would just shut me out. She became a different person. I put her into therapy and it helped a little, but not by much. I don't know what to do anymore, so I just let her be and made sure that I was there for her and to continue her therapy. 2 days ago, my daughter finally broke down and admitted that her brother had been picking on her and laughing about her. She said he kept talking about the sentence, lipstick on a pig, around her. I was shocked. I never thought my son would act like that, but I knew she was telling the truth from the pain in her eyes. When my son came back home that day, I told him that my daughter told me what he did and that he was grounded until his 18th birthday. It's in 5 months. I took his phone and computer and told him that he would get his phone before school and that I'd take it back when I got home. I get home around the same time as him, since he has a long school day and basketball practice. He tried to protest, but I just asked him if she was lying, and he wouldn't answer me. So I took that as a yes, and hadn't talked to him since except for when I had to. I don't know how to deal with all of this. My daughter seems to get worse since I grounded her brother, but she's told me that he hasn't talked to her since, and that she just feels bad. I'm starting to feel bad too. Both of my kids are miserable now. I'm barely talking to my son, and I don't know how to even begin to explain this to my family, since my husband's side of the family has heard about this and has been sending me an angry text, along with my sister-in-law coming to my house to scold me about not listening to his side. My husband supports my punishment, but he works long hours and isn't home too much, so it's all up to me. I need to know if I'm in the wrong here. You are the idiot. Deep down, you know it. Your punishment is not in line with the crime. Siblings tease each other. I'm sure she's not 100% innocent, but I doubt you allowed your son to speak about anything. You've made your son a prisoner, and you ignore him in his own house. This is a cruel punishment. His own mother won't even speak to him because he teased his sister? I can't imagine the perfect mother would go from a lifetime of perfect mothering straight to withdrawing her love for 5 months until their ex-son is a legal adult without even allowing him to talk appropriately about his experience of what happened. What if she said mean things, worse things, and that was his retort? She'd still be upset, crying, making mommy feel bad for her. The son wouldn't have wanted to lie and said he didn't say them, and he was only given that one yes or no question before OP just exploded on him. Ultimately, you can't expect your kids to behave better or nicer or to have much emotional control when this is how she reacts to teenagers calling names. I'm getting clear golden child vibes from OP in this story. The reaction's almost like a, "How dare you take my pink girly girl away from me?" type of thing. OP, I very highly doubt your daughter's changes are purely about what her brother said, but you're not going to bother looking into that. You're too busy being the warden. You're an idiot, and shown by your actions that you are unfit to be a parent. I have a tween daughter, Ellie. She has a best friend, Sophie, also tween. Both of the girls have special needs and are around 6 years old mentally. Sophie's mom called me yesterday, said that they were at an indoor playground, and Sophie wanted to know if Ellie could come and play. Sophie's mom offered to put me on her punch card. She prepays for 10 to 20 visits at a time because it's cheaper, so it would be free for me. So I got Ellie in the car and we met them at the playground. After about an hour of playing, the girls started to get hungry. I packed a snack for Ellie, but Sophie's mom didn't have any snacks on her. I told her they sell snacks in the front, but she claimed that she didn't have any money on her and asked me to buy Sophie some goldfish. I said, sure, Venmo me and I'll grab some. But she said no. I told her I took care of my kid and it's not my job to take care of hers too. She says she paid for my kid to get in so I could cover the $2 for the goldfish. I told her if she wanted me to bring snacks, she should have told me when she invited me. But I won't be wasting $2 for a 50-cent bag of goldfish because she was unprepared. She went up to the front and I don't know if she lied about not having money, but she came back with goldfish and fruit snacks. Now she's being petty by asking me to pay her back for all of the times we've used their memberships and guest passes, so we're not getting along. I'm going to have to see her at school drop-off and pick-up, ballet class, gymnastics class, and the girls' weekly playdates. So I wanted to know if I was the idiot for not buying her kid a snack. You are the idiot. You mentioned she's paid multiple times for your daughter's entrance fees. She clearly doesn't usually ask you for money or take advantage of the friendship. Now, this strong friendship is in jeopardy because she's generous with you, but you won't return the favor in a smaller one-off ask. You wanted a transactional friendship and are going to get exactly what you asked for. Don't expect free invitations in the future and make sure to budget accordingly. Gym costs are way more than goldfish. Was saving $2 really worth it? In jeopardy? LOL? That friendship is over. Lady, the friend's mother basically paid for you and your daughter to get into the play area, and you couldn't afford $2 to buy her a snack and help pay her back for letting you in for free? You were so cheap. Silly you couldn't take $2 to buy a snack. You need to look at your entitlement. Springing a few freaking dollars so a child wouldn't have to go hungry wouldn't have killed you. Don't worry though, you and your daughter won't be receiving an invitation for playdates anytime soon. I disagree. I wouldn't be surprised if the other woman tried to salvage it. The special needs community is much smaller than a typical friendship pool. Finding another child with similar age and mental abilities to yours that your child also gets along with is often hard to find. The cynic in me thinks that OP knows that and therefore also knows she can get away with far more than with other types of friendships, which makes her callous behavior that much worse and frankly stupid. Even for her own best interest, it's stupid. You don't ostracize friends that you also need. My sister, Chelsea, has 2 children, a toddler and an infant, and last month she and her husband decided to go on a holiday to Europe before they'd have to buy a seat for the kids. She said the kids were terrible flyers and cried the whole way on both trips. We're from Australia and wouldn't settle down. She's made a lot of passive-aggressive posts on social media about how entitled non-parents are about kids on planes and how people need to have more sympathy for moms because they're suffering more than they are because their babies won't settle, and being a parent is hard. She's been kinda whiny in general since she became a mom, always complaining about how hard it is, and she makes a lot of snide comments to me about how it must be nice that I sleep in, etc., because I've chosen not to have kids. The plane situation came up when I saw her last night. She started talking about it again, and I asked her if something specific happened or if someone was rude to her about the kids, and she admitted that they weren't really. People just looked visibly annoyed as the kids refused to settle, and on one of the flights, the person next to her asked the flight attendant if there was anywhere else she could sit after a couple of hours and looked disappointed when told that there wasn't as the flight was full. She also said that they were rude because none offered to help or give her reassuring smiles and comments. I said that people have the right to be annoyed at a baby crying the whole way from Melbourne to Singapore on a flight that leaves at 1 a.m. and lands at like 9 a.m. And she went off saying that they don't, and her kids have a right to fly. I told her I never said that they didn't, just that people have the right to not be thrilled about it, being seated next to her infant who cries the whole way, and that they don't have to feel more sorry for her than themselves because she's responsible for bringing the kids onto the plane and created the situation. I also said that no one but her and her husband are obligated to look after their children on a flight, and it isn't fair to expect the people around her to help with them. She stormed out and complained to my parents, who backed me up, but our other sister started dogpiling me too, so I just went home. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, OP. She does sound majorly entitled. People are allowed to feel annoyed, and they aren't there to pat her on her head. Strangers do not exist to accommodate her. Having to care for your kids on a flight can be very stressful, but expecting others to help is just mind-blowing to me. LOL, imagine complaining because you're a parent of 2 kids under 2 and can afford a trip from flippin' Australia to Europe and think people should have sympathy for you? Disclaimer, I'm a mom of a 10-month-old. There are plenty of times I have sympathy for parents during their round trip around the world is not one of them. If people were saying nasty things to her, that'd be one thing. No one is happy in the situation of a screaming baby on the plane. And I would feel sympathy for the mom if people were insulting her in some way. But an annoyed look? She has some nerve to talk about entitlement when she's acting like the world owes her anything for having kids. If I spend my money and book a flight, I expect luxury and comfort. Screaming kids is the last thing on my need on a plane list. I'm a grandparent of 2. They're both tweens. The 2 kids do not get along. The youngest is autistic and will have a meltdown at the drop of a hat. I've had argument after argument with my son over the youngest. It came to a head when we got into an argument about me putting my granddaughter in timeout. I do timeout for how old they are, and if they leave the timeout chair, the time restarts. It took the youngest almost an hour to get through a timeout. This resulted in a huge argument where I cannot punish her anymore. Personally, I don't see them parenting her and letting her meltdowns happen. She's in the normal classes at school. She can understand things. It just might take longer. The main issue, my oldest grandchild was ranting about their sibling, and I offered them to go on a small day trip. Contacted the parents that I want to do this with my oldest. They were mad when I didn't want to take the youngest also, but I made it clear it was bonding time with the oldest. We had a great time and I bought him a few things, like a new hoodie and some candy. I got into another argument since they're upset that I bought him stuff, that the youngest has been sad since I won't take her out. Am I the idiot? Edit. I put her in timeout and my son and daughter-in-law flipped when I explained it. I apparently was too cruel. It was a timeout. All she did was sit in a chair. She got upset that dinner wasn't what she wanted, so she started to throw her food and then threw anything she could grab. I stopped that real quick. Not the idiot. Having autism is not an excuse for misbehaving. It often simply means that more work may be involved to reach societal norms. If the younger one is in normal classes at school, that says a lot to me. Spending individual time with each child makes a lot of sense. Since the parents have placed limits on how you manage the second child, it also makes sense that you don't spend as much time with that child. Unfortunately, the older child is probably often set aside because of the meltdowns of the younger child. So you spending time with the older child is especially good, so that your older grandchild gets some me first time. I suspect that in such an environment, some of her meltdowns are legit, but others are tantrums because she's not getting her way. OP, you're the grandparent, not the parent, and if you cannot manage an autistic child, that's not your fault, not your responsibility. Often, the siblings of the autistic child are held back and limited because your brother or sister can't do this or can't go. So the fact that you're stepping up to give your older grandchild a break is nice. You are the idiot. Your method of doing timeout clearly doesn't work as discipline for your autistic grandchild, but you insist on using it anyway because it's what you do. That makes you an idiot. Please read about autism and masking. A kid may be able to do something at school, but not be able to do the same thing at home because they've used themselves up masking throughout the school day and have nothing left. Also, if you have one-on-one time with the oldest, you need to also do that with the youngest. Right now, you're only making her feel like a monster. That is so cruel of you. Figure it out. You're the darn adult here. Act like one.